I miss when the world was jolly and gay.
When was that?
I don't know, when cars were fast. They went a whole 25 miles an hour, and you had to crank them to get them going. And people wore really high-waisted pants, and like everyone had business suits even when they were poor. That seemed like the time to live. If you like discount the homophobia, racism, terrible nutrition. How far have you gotten to the big sleep?
I'm about almost halfway. I think I got 100 pages left.
So you've noticed that every single page almost involves them drinking it or smoking a cigarette.
Yeah.
Like, good Lord, you people must look terrible. No wonder why people back then looked like they were like 60 in their 20s. They just looked awful. Whiskey for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then lots of coffee. Yeah. Black.
Yes.
Dirt coffee. And you know that coffee was gross.
Oh, yeah. Imagine what whiskey was like back then.
Ooh, yeah, especially after Prohibition. It was probably raunchy as fuck. I don't know if it would be really that fun. You know what?
Yeah,
another thing also.
Depression.
Yeah, the Depression was also bad in World War II. I don't know, in the 40s, was California just always raining?
That must have been the last time it rained.
Yeah. Like, the whole book is just rainy. It's like New York City or Chicago.
That's why I was kind of surprised that it took place in LA, because I was thinking New York, you know what I mean? Something like,
This must be like the Blade Runner timeline for LA. It's just fucking cold and wet all the time. It's just not how it ever turned out. Nothing turned out the way it was supposed to. We didn't have flying cars. We got TikTok and quarantine. Fucking sucks. Hello, you are listening to the Drunken Pen Writing Podcast. I'm your host, Caleb James. With me today, Spencer, the Michigan Master of Manslaughter Church.
Ooh, yeah, I like that one.
That was way better than the one I had before. Like I said, I forgot it, but it was a gross one. It involved Michigan, but it was gross.
The best ones are the ones that can either double as a wrestling name or a serial killer.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah, those are all good.
Those always seem to be the best.
Yeah, I should focus more towards wrestling and serial killer than the gross ones.
Speaking of wrestling and serial killing, I'm halfway through, there's a new, Superfly Jimmy Snuka documentary.
Yeah.
Out on the dark side of the ring.
Also, speaking of murder, the only one I watched of that show was the Chris Benoit one. And goddamn.
Yeah, both those episodes were pretty good.
Yeah. I'm going to have to start watching more. I want to watch the New Jack one.
I know, I got, with this quarantine, I got, heavy,
into the old wrestling stories.
I watched both season 1 and season 2 of the whole thing.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. I've been watching a bunch of anime, and I got her watching Rescue Me, so...
Okay, I was gonna ask. I saw the box set out and stuff. I was gonna ask her about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. Good show. Man, when you watch that show now, though, just through the 2020 lens...
Oh, I'm terrible at it.
You're just like, God damn, you can't do any of this. Well, every one episode, they're all smoking and drinking constantly, too. You can't do that.
Well, and especially, too, because, if I remember, a good part of that series was, things that you couldn't do anymore because, the things you couldn't do in the fire system because now there was women in there.
Yeah.
And stuff like that, so...
And a lot of things with,
now.
homophobic banter and everything, and... Yeah, that you couldn't do those things then, so now, fuck. They should redo that show. It would be very lame, probably.
Yeah, it would be crazy.
What are we talking about today? I think you need to get your ass out of the house, boy. I seen and heard that cough fit.
That was from water.
If you say so. Oh, no. So, what's today, the 29th?
That's something that's close.
I made it to April 29th, and then I got the corona from Spencer. I probably already had it 4 times. I don't care anymore. We're going to talk about editing. Why? Because we didn't feel like researching things, and this is one we both do.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this a little bit earlier because, again, I saw another round of people saying, either one of two things. I edit as I write, and then that's it, or I just don't edit. And both of those things, like, I just cannot agree with that. I mean, unless you're just, maybe you're a master writer, or maybe you're, see, one, I feel like if you're constantly editing as you're writing, you're not going to ever really finish.
Yeah, it's going to take too long.
Yeah, that's going to be a pain in the ass. I mean, it can be done if you have a certain system, but even so, you got to go back and you do a pass.
Yeah.
Like, you don't even do one pass. You just, that's done, put that out there on the market. I would be devastated, because I'm the kind of guy too, like when the book came out, the physical copy, and I'm looking at it and I see a typo, I'm lighting it on fire, I'm taking all my shit and I'm moving under a bridge.
Did you notice a typo in The Big Sleep?
I noticed a few. I've noticed for some reason, like half of you might not got there yet, there's like a good chunk of right in the middle where every time the word corner comes up, it's C-O-M-E-R, like comer, for some reason. And I was like, maybe the R in the end like somehow hooked, but then like pages after that it has corner and it's right, so they just fucked up. And then I saw don't with a question mark.
Yeah, I was gonna see that or it was like the comma was like 3 letters 2 N or something like that. Like,
yeah, and this is like the mass market print edition. I don't know, they really fucked it up.
I mean, like, this story's been out for like almost 100 years almost. like 80 years, right? Like, because it was like in the 30s when it came out.
I think it came out in the 40s.
Something.
I thought it was set in the 40s.
I don't know.
Either or, we're at least 70.
Yeah.
Solid 70 years.
Somebody should have. Hopefully that's just something from, like, this print, like, edition.
Yeah.
No, like, that goes all the way back to the original. Like, wow, nobody caught that?
I catch those every once in a while in the classic literature, and I think, was this just a reprinting error? Because I don't know how that happens.
Yeah.
How would you have it's not like somebody's rewriting the thing. Like, I don't know how you would have, like, a printing error or a typo make it through multiple renditions of the book. Like, somebody's got to fucking catch that at some point. Yeah, I don't know. That's weird. I did notice that, though, and I was like, I don't know. Also, the book I'm reading now, just telling you, I'm like a couple chapters in, far superior to The Big Sleep. Of course, it's hard to compare. This one came out 2017 versus something that came out, like we said, 30s or 40s. But just as far as the gritty noir, neo-noir type of drama, because this one takes place in Tokyo, it's called Blue Light Yokomoto, I think. I forget. I don't have it on hand. It's like Yokomoto or Yakamano or something. But it's about detective in Tokyo and stuff like that. But like what I was hoping I would get with The Big Sleep, which I guess is kind of lofty since that was really the first private dick story. Yeah. Like that was the first real noir story. Just the imagery already is just like, oh yeah, this is what I think of when I think of noir. Like the imagery I'm getting, like the neon lights and the fucking gritty streets and like everything. The description's really good. So I actually highly recommend this be your next book to read.
I say, they're kind of on opposite ends of the tunnel, kind of. You know, you just got done with like what kind of started it. And then you're now reading something that it eventually that kind of genre like evolved into,
right?
Through all these decades of different writers taking on that genre.
Yeah, well, just with that though is what I was surprised about. The book's called Blue Light Yokohama, not Yokomoto, Yokohama, and it's by Nicholas Obregon. And I believe he's like a English-Spanish gentleman, which I was surprised because, like I said, this is set in Japan. Thought this was, like you mistaken, thought it was a Japanese author. It's not. But he seems to really know the Japanese police system and stuff, which is interesting. And anyway, I was really surprised because for a book that came out in 2017, I don't tend to read a lot of modern writers because their writing style is, I find it like too simple or too bland. Like it's very rare I find one that's really descriptive and not verbose, like not purple prose, but is still able, like not a Fitzgerald or a fucking Melville, but still able to like be beyond a Hemingway with their prose. Like they could use bigger words, but they actually fit. Not like, oh, I just looked at a thesaurus and that's so far. Like I said, I'm only a couple chapters in, so far that seems to be done really well, and looking forward to seeing how that goes. But going back to the whole editing topic, so you agree. How do you just let something be done? Like, just finish one pass, you finish the first draft, and you're done?
I think it kind of more like... And again, it changes from project to project as on how you edit, on how much you edit. But then I think the ultimate thing is when you kind of can't stand looking at it anymore.
Yeah, that's usually about when you're done.
Or at least should give it a break. Maybe start on do a short story or something to get your mind and stuff off the story, and then do another quick pass, or maybe do that. Do it to where you can't stand looking at it. Let a couple people read it. Get some beta readers. Or
I like to take a break.
Family members.
What I like to do, before I even go into that, I want to just touch back on the people who say they don't edit, or they edit as they go and then they're just done, no second pass or anything. Yeah. I want to say a lot of those people have to be kind of lying, right? I don't know, maybe they just want people to think there's some master storyteller. I just don't see how you could do that, because even when I write a flash fiction story, I usually go over 2 or 3 times. Yeah. I'm like, did I word this right? Is this how I want the story to go? If you're writing a whole novel, I get it. You don't want to have to go back and do it again. But, you can hire an editor. That's fine. But still, you at least do one pass.
But again, if you're going to hire somebody to do that, if you're going to hire an editor, you're still going to want to go over it a couple times
before you hand it in, yeah.
Because, that's pretty expensive for each pass that they go through, and you don't want them to... you don't want them to pick out all the little stupid shit that you didn't,
Yeah, you just didn't feel like looking at or dealing with. Anyway, going back to my work, one thing I like to do, and this is skipping ahead in the editing process, after my first draft, I found this makes me better at finishing projects and finishing them quicker, is I just take a break from that project. Sometimes just from writing in general, but usually I'll just work on something else or some smaller things or maybe some creative things that aren't even writing. But I take a break from the project, especially a longer short story or something. Just throw it away, maybe a week, maybe even a month, depending on just how I'm feeling. That way, when you go back into it, you're fresh, and it's almost like you're reading somebody else's story, kind of. You're not, because you'll miss things. You'll miss a lot of basic things in your mind, like when you're reading your own work, because you'll read it you're already thinking it. Yeah. So you're if there's an error, you might just gloss over it because your mind just fills it in for you. Your brain will just fill in the blank of what you're fucking up, so you just keep going. But if you give it a month off and you kind of forgot the smaller details of your story, then those will pop out at you. And I've talked about this on here before. Recording you reading your story, especially one that's dialogue heavy, and then playing back, you'll tell, for one, if you're out of breath while you're reading the dialogue, you need some more breaks.
Or just reading it aloud, even not recording it, just reading it aloud.
You'll find things that don't fit, sentences that might be kind of wonky, they don't look wonky as you're looking at them, but then when you read them, they're wonky. That's just a really good method of figuring out certain things that might not work, and some mistakes, because sometimes spelling errors don't really pop out to you until... spelling or grammar errors don't really pop out to you until you say it out loud.
Yeah.
Reversing back to the beginning of the editing process, what's the first thing you do as soon as you're done with your first draft?
The first thing I do is I go through and fix most of the red squiggle marks and just that kind of because I said before, a lot of times when I'm in a good writing flow, I won't put the apostrophe at the end of can't or don't or didn't, I don't, but you know what I mean, I'm just trying to get through, so all these small things like that out, or maybe different commas, or that kind of stuff, or things that I know that I spelled wrong, but I'm just not worried about that right now.
You're not stopping to fix it, just going.
Just get all of that stuff kind of polished and cleaned up, so then whenever I go to do a real edit and draft through, that stuff's not getting in my way. It can be more on
you can focus on the story and what needs to be really
more on just the story, or the big glaring do I really need this paragraph in here? Should I talk about something else? That kind of stuff.
Well, we briefly talked off air how you said you generally add more in editing than you do take away, and I find I'm kind of similar in that regard. I have gotten a lot better now at, especially like sentences that I thought, oh yeah, that's a fucking master sentence right there. That needs to be in there. And then when I read it, I go, that is a great sentence. It's fucking beautiful. But it's wonderful. Has nothing to do with what I'm saying. Doesn't fit. I need to just cut it. And now I used to not cut that shit. And then you have these long, stupid, dumb shits in your story that don't need to be there. Stephen King says you got to kill your darlings.
Yeah.
You might love your writing too much, and that could be detrimental. That's why you got to cut that shit.
But see, that's what the good thing about now, like nowadays with writing and technology, you can literally just copy paste that line into another just that document of which is like awesome things that can go into a story folder and just have it there that you can reuse later.
I love doing that with descriptions I'll come up with. Like, I just finished that adventure story, and I was going over some things, and I was like, that is a great description, but that doesn't fit in this genre. Something that might fit better for, like, a story that involves guns or something, or something that involves, fast cars. Like, you're talking about something being polished or shiny, like, just small things like that. And it's like, well, I don't want to forget that, so you put that in the document, and you go back to that well whenever you need to get some water for your story to help it grow. But yeah, I generally, I do cut more than I ever have before, but I still find I always end up adding like another 1,000 words to my story.
Just because like I feel like I was gonna ask you thought because you everything for the website you always give it at least once over before we post it and make sure I don't make us look too much like idiots that what you thought about like my editing and stuff like that, but like I find my writing style very minimalistic, especially to begin with. Like it's I don't a lot of times go into crazy super long sentences describing something, or like I'm very kind of moving forward, which can be good for some things, but for a lot of things not. And so I have to go through and like add a couple of sentences onto a paragraph, or a whole new
flesh it out a little more,
and just kind of breathe more like life into it and that kind of stuff.
When I edit your work, not so much now compared to when we first started this, but I find the main thing I have to do is kind of punch up certain paragraphs, or usually just sentences, whether it's just like a small filler word, or maybe just tack on something to the end to kind of either hit a point home. Because like you said, you kind of are straight to the point and have shorter, punchier sentences. But sometimes you need just a little addition to the end to like flesh it. It's not necessary, but I find it just makes it more of an enjoyable read. And again, those are kind of things that sometimes it's just hard to see in your own work. Like a lot of times I find... like I'll send my stuff out to somebody that like I might get things either shorten this, or something that I feel like makes sense to me doesn't actually really make sense to the reader, and that needs like cleared up. You're good at finding those in my stories. You always say, hey, that kind of like that's cool, but I'm not exactly sure what's happening or things like that.
Well, and it's always easier to edit somebody else's work than your own work. Because I mean, like, how many times have we either like watched or read something and we're like, oh, that was kind of cool, but they should have done that. Like, what kind of editing their work, or what we thought they should have done. And it's easier to do that with somebody else's work than doing it with your own.
Well, it's a lot easier when it's not so personal to you.
Yeah.
When it's not...
When you didn't put the work in.
Yeah. And honestly, it takes a while for a writer to get comfortable with somebody either critiquing or editing their work. Like, again, because it's so personal to you that it's hard at first not to get offended when somebody says, hey, man, that's kind of dog shit. Like, I mean, not in those words unless you're really close with somebody, but still, you're like, hey, that's not... Like, that whole scene right there doesn't even make sense to the story. And you don't want to be a dick about it when you're saying that. But it's easily when you, like I said, when you first start to get more offended by stuff like that. But as you grow and you start realizing what's important is the story.
Yes.
Not your feelings toward certain parts of it. And I think that's another reason why a lot of people say they don't edit or they don't have editors or things like that, is because they can't handle, or they just don't want somebody to critique their work in that way. They don't want to... They feel like they're attacked or something. And it's never personal. Whenever I edit somebody's work, I'm never thinking like, oh, I want to make them feel shitty about something.
Yeah, and I've never, because other than like, you've read like almost all my work, but like there's a couple like, people that I've like sent stuff out to, like the stories that we're trying to put in the book. I've let some people read those to see what they think. And I never, I never really worry about, like, what negative things are they gonna say, because, like, I look at it this way, like, okay, well, because maybe this is just me, but I always look at the down in any kind of situation.
Yeah.
So, like,
I think that's most people.
So,
that's
like,
why people read negative reviews rather than positive
so, like,
usually.
whenever I give somebody something to read, I already have it in my mindset that it is dog shit. And you know what I mean? And they're just gonna reaffirm that to me, so, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I kind of, so whenever they do that, if that does happen, or whenever they're like, no, it's good, or, you know, they might have some critiques or whatever like that, it's not normally anywhere as bad as I've already built up in my own mind.
Yeah.
That it's gonna be.
For me, if somebody says it's dog shit, that doesn't bother me. What bothers me is just general indifference.
Yeah.
They're just like, how was the story? Oh, it's good. It was okay. What'd you like about it? Yeah, it was good. Yeah. I like the pacing. Like,
Yeah, because at least, like, if it's bad, it could be like maybe because, like, you know, you tried to make a choice.
Yeah.
With a story, and it might not have worked, but you took that chance. So, like, whenever you just get nothing back, when you just get blandness back, it's almost kind of like, I try to be clever.
It's like a joke that falls flat.
Yeah.
You're looking around, and then you start laughing at your own joke, trying to hype it up, and nobody gives a shit. You're like, oh, I fucked up. Yeah, that's the worst, personally, to me.
And then also, you know, it depends on who's saying it. If it's just some smur online, you know, leaving like a shitty comment on, you know, on a review or an article or a story or something.
Yeah.
They probably think everything's shitty. But if it's like, you know, one of your peers or somebody that you look up to, or, you know, think you value their opinion, and, you know, and of course those people aren't going to be like as crass to say, oh, it's just shit. They're going to be like, it needs work or whatever. But those are the people you take that in, you know, when they say that, if it's negative, you know, you have to kind of trust them a little bit.
Now, this just might be because we're in our own little bubble here with DPW. So, like, a lot of the, you know, I forget how many subscribers we have on there, or people who follow us. But, like, out of our steady readers that read our work, whenever they do comment, it's usually on something they really like.
Yeah.
It's very rare, other than your shitty, super viral, dumb Marvel article that's got fucking 100,000 views or whatever. Other than that, it's usually... people only seem to be commenting on things they like, and they'll give reasons why they like it, so that's nice. We don't have too much experience with just random, like, internet trolls being like, oh, that's shit, because I think we're still small enough that if people don't like what we're reading, they just kind of ignore it, because there's no... You know, if you're making fun of DPW online, that's not going to get you anything. Yeah. Like, nobody's like... Now, if you're making fun of, you know, a big YouTuber or something, then maybe you'll get some attention your way. But you're not going to get attention making fun of the DPW guys or calling their shit out. So nobody really cares. So that kind of leaves us with just the positive people, which I like. But hopefully in the future, we will get some trolls to deal with, and we can blast them on here, which would be fun.
It's like an achievement in a game.
Yeah.
You know, you knew locked in an achievement. You have gained trolls now.
I have gotten the trolls, and I used to have a lot of trolls when I did freelance writing, and I still get emails for those. They call me some very harsh names, and I should show you some of those sometime. Maybe I'll read them on air one time.
Yeah, I was gonna say that sounds like an episode.
And like the thing that I just find so lovely about almost all of those, it was always, well, this was well written, but you know, you're a pussy boy, and they'll just go on whatever dumb shit. And what's always funny is, one, they always say it's well written, which I think is hilarious. And two, they always have the worst fucking grammar and spelling when they're writing. Like, you took the time out of your day to email, not just like, it's not like, because it used to be on Facebook comments, but now they don't post because they're older now, so they don't really repost those articles anymore too much. So it's not like these people are just saying it on Facebook or Twitter or something. They're actually emailing. Like, they're going onto the contact form, finding wherever that is on whatever random website it is, and then they're sending it to me. It's like, that seems like a lot of work just to have such dog shit grammar. Like, learn how to spell fuckface. But I always get a kick out of those when somebody is like, man, I touched that guy in the worst way, and I like it. Because that brings me back to my younger days when we would just fucking...
mayhem. And
we were just a lot more chaotic than we are now. I've mellowed out a lot when it comes to the instigation of others. Like, not so much online, but, like, we would always just fuck with random people that were real douchebags, and it was wonderful. Usually at work.
Which reminds me, I gotta tell you something after.
I can't wait.
After recording.
Here's an interesting little side topic for the editing. We both started using Grammarly. They're not, what do you call those?
Sponsors?
They're not a sponsor, but we do use it, and I mainly just use it because, I have Scrivener, which I really like, but I haven't written things that were long enough to really need Scrivener. I like using that for like 20,000 plus word stories. But I find Google Docs is easier for us to just share things back and forth, and it's nice. I find their quick grammar checks decent, and then we got Grammarly because it's free.
Yeah.
I just use that. Actually, honestly, what I use Grammarly for, I don't know how you do it. I use it for some comma checks, and what I really like is when you click on a word, it gives you thesaurus, like gives you other words.
Yeah.
I don't have to look them up. And Google has that, but you have to like do an extra step and you have to like find the definition. I don't want to do all that. So Grammarly is nice for that. And I heard a lot of people bitch because I think they rely too much on it. They say it changes the way they write and it changes their stories. And I can see how that is because if you do follow it to a T, you're going to have a very not basic style writing, but a very like all your work's gonna be the same.
Yeah, because I noticed there'll be a couple of times they will want me to change one of the stories I had. It made me want to I had it one that way, but it wanted it the way, or you know, something like
it always changes little things like that.
But it doesn't automatically change it. It just suggests you to change it.
Yeah,
so you don't have to change it. You know?
Well, that's like the story I just sent you. I sent you the PDF because you don't get distracted by that. Because since that's an old timey adventure story, I wrote it in an older timey way. Like I didn't use contractions, which I don't do that in my general writing. But that kind of story. Because the way people spoke back then, it was had not hadn't. That's the way you would do it. And just a lot of the way I would phrase things would be kind of backwards almost because it's an old-timey way of speaking sometimes. And it would fucking catch every one of those. And it was really annoying. But like I said, I mainly use that for a quick spell check that usually catches things. A quick comma check, which I find is hit or miss. Sometimes I feel like it makes a sentence worse. A lot of times it breaks it up at weird places, and I don't like that. And I use it for, like I said, like the thesaurus or just a definition. Like if I think up a word like palette, I like that word, but what the fuck is that? Is that like pale, or am I thinking of something else? And I'll look it up. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's what it is.
The only downside that I found to it is that when you once you get past a certain word limit, it doesn't.
It won't work, and then you have to hit. You could get it to work. You just have to hit the thing, and then it'll come up. And sometimes it's a little wonky, but it usually works. Like my story's almost 10,000 words, and it still works. But I have to activate it again.
Yeah. But again, that's also we're just doing the free version. There was a paid version of it too. I'm sure you probably get a little bit more.
Well, I forget the name of it, but there's another app that you have to pay for. And it works on Scrivener, which would be really nice because then I could just switch over to Scrivener full time for my stuff. And it does all the things Grammarly does, but better. And it does what the Hemingway editor does, which you've never used, but that tells you if you're writing passive tense too much, and or if your sentence structure is too complicated. Like it does a lot of that stuff. It doesn't do spell check or that's like grammar check kind of, but. That's an episode for another day. But that's a cool thing. But if I could get that all in one program, and use Scrivener, I think that's the way to go. But I haven't fucking fired up Scrivener in a while, so I'm not sure how it's working currently because they always update it, and then sometimes it fucks up, and I don't know. But I find the Google Docs is just kind of easier.
Yeah, that's what I just like.
Because I always hated Microsoft Word, but Google Docs just seems like it's nice. The formatting though can fucking suck sometimes. Yeah. I had the other day, I swear it took me fucking 25 minutes to figure out how to switch back to indents because it was so stupid because it just stopped indenting automatically, and I had to keep hitting the tab, and I was like, why the fuck did it just start doing this? So I had to go up and I had to fucking read about it because it's not just what you would assume is you just go to the indent thing and just hit, indent 1 and then it would go in. No, that moves the whole page over. I had to go to the ruler. There's a ruler that wasn't popped up. I had to find the ruler menu and move one part of the ruler and the other part the other. I was like, this is needlessly complicated. Again, it's a matter of what your preference is, what your software. I would like to do an episode on software as well.
That'd be one where it's just a lot of me going, yeah.
Yeah. I like writing.
Yeah. Tappity, 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 tappity.
Like a lot of people use Word, and I feel like that's kind of invasive almost to your writing, I think. I just never really cared for it, and I lost so much work on there when they switched to the open office bullshit. Remember?
I remember you always... Whenever I started, I've always just been Google Docs.
Yeah.
But I remember you talking about Word just being getting pissed.
Yeah, because I would have like 10 chapters of a story, and then for whatever reason, from one Wi-Fi to another, because I would write on the road sometimes at work, like on my lunch, when I would come home, it would sync up, and it would go back to whatever the original thing was. It would just like corrupt or lose a whole 10 chapters I wrote, and I get so fucking mad. I don't think I even published those stories because I just gave up on them after some point. Yeah, so fuck Microsoft Word. It sucks, in my opinion.
Another editing sidebar. What are your stances on getting an editor for like any kind of like a novel?
If I'm publishing my own work, like I'm doing the whole indie publishing route, I'm getting an editor, even if it's expensive. Like if for a whole novel at least, like a short story collection, probably not. But a whole novel. It's not even just the grammar and spelling check. It would be for like fucked up plot points.
But then because you have to be careful because that's when you have to really do the research and see what kind of editor you're getting. Because some editors
you get to pay extra for that.
Yeah, and because some editors are just like a grammar and a spell check thing.
That's usually the first thing the first tier.
Yeah,
it'd be like $300 to $500 that they'll do like one, maybe if you're lucky, get 2 passes of grammar and typos and shit. But usually it's around, I think, $1,000 to $1,500 to get an editor to do like a full real edit.
Yeah.
I think that's freelance rates. I mean, I might be wildly off now because just the way the market goes, I don't know what the specific number. But when I was looking at editors previously, that's what I found the normal to be for, what was it, like a 90,000 to 110,000 word novel. It's like somewhere around there. But that's expensive, but at the same time... Do you want it to be, like we talked to Ray Wink a couple times. We did his zombie book on here. What was it, Tower of the Dead?
Yes.
That was one of our books of the month. Well, we talked to him at a couple cons, and we asked him, I was like, hey, you have a fucking like 80 fucking books on these. Like, he had a lot of books out. Like, do you edit these yourselves, or do you have an editor? He's like, I make sure I always have an editor.
Yeah.
And it's not like his stories, they're zombie stories, so it's not like needlessly complicated words in there and like things that you'd have to really focus on. It's just, fun stories. And even he is getting a professional editor to do all his books. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't understand these people who just refuse. Like, I can get not wanting to do fucking, multiple passes on a 90,000 word fucking novel. But at the same time, you can hire somebody. That's what I would do.
Yeah.
If I want to put out the best work I can. I would hate to have a book that's solid, but then people give it negative reviews because of stupid shit like spelling and grammar. Or, those continuity errors. Like, oh, his eyes are blue at the beginning and then they're brown later on. Those are little things. Again, also the editing process, beta readers.
Yeah.
If you can get some beta readers, they'll catch that. I've had some hit or miss moments with beta readers. I've had some that, like, fucking way too much goddamn, like, fucking essays written about the story. And I'm like, okay, I'm not even going to touch that.
Yeah.
And then I've had other ones where they just give me, like, a little too basic, then it's just, I really liked it, but, yeah, it was good. Like, okay, that wasn't helpful at all, but thank you for reading it. And also, in my personal opinion, if you're going to get beta readers, I don't think they should be your friends. Like, if you want your friends to be able to read your work, but if you want somebody that's going to be completely unbiased and going into it, especially if they don't know your writing style at all, I think that would be best. Now, that could hurt you in the fact that you might get somebody who doesn't even read the genre you're writing or doesn't like that kind of fiction. That's just a risk you'll have to take, I guess. But I think it's a better idea to get beta readers, even if they're just online people that you're like friends with online, but you're not, like, you don't hang out with them, you don't know them in real life.
And again, it all depends on the person too. Like, like with you, like I wouldn't like. I know, like, if I had, like, a, you know, like, a longer story, like, I wanted to submit somewhere, you know, that wasn't for the site or whatever, and if you had the time, if I, like, let you read it, I know whatever you say is gonna be, like, you're not gonna try to, like, blow smoke up my ass or anything to, like, be like, oh, it's a good story. You're gonna be, like, you're gonna be honest, you know.
Well, so, Spencer, that's because I'm an alpha reader.
Yeah.
That's the difference, sir. The alpha reader is usually somebody you really trust their opinion on.
Yeah.
That's a little different than beta readers. Beta readers, I think, if you can get 10 to 20 who like all kinds of fiction, nonfiction, like just to really run the gamut, that way you can play the averages.
Yeah.
So if you can get, this person said this was shit, but then this person liked the thing that person said it was shit, so just fucking cut them both out.
It's kind of like test screenings for movies.
Yeah, and then you just kind of whittle it down when you see the same problem arising. Okay, that's something I finally need to address. But if you just see one person bitching about one aspect of your book, but everybody else likes it, well, then that one person is wrong.
Yeah.
That's just the way you have to look at it. I mean, maybe they're not wrong, you know,
but
actually wrong, but they're wrong in the sense that you don't need to change it for that just one person. You never change it for one person. You change it for the many people. Yeah. If you're going to change it, and you can be one of those blowhards who just, I do not compromise my art for any man.
Yeah.
I shall bestow my work upon the universe, and they will like it or they will hate it, but I do not care because I am French.
It is me, my work.
That was a terrible French accent. Yeah, I don't like those people. And you know what? Those people are always the non-editing people. Like they just can't take critiques. Well, maybe you could take some fucking critiques if you learned how to have people edit your work, like, you know, at least beta read your work.
And again, like to bring it back to like just the normal everyday part of my life, I'm used to just how people tell me how I do things wrong all the time. So why shouldn't it be any different in my writing? You know, so tell me what's wrong. I might fix it. I might not.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, well, here's a good one. Have you ever had somebody suggest a change in your book that you didn't like or you just felt wouldn't have been right, and then you had to kind of fight with, well, and this would probably be really hard if you had multiple people do it. Probably goes back to the kill your darlings thing. Do you make that change or do you stick with your original vision?
I haven't come across that yet. I know that's going to be one like those unlock achievement kind of things, but I haven't really stumbled across that yet. But yeah, that's one of those, you know, difficult decisions. So, you know, what's best for the story.
I've had that a few times. I've had one story where a couple people told me that I need to cut out the backstory of a character, which was like it was only like a few paragraphs, but at the same time, it's like, but do you not understand that the ending of the story calls back to those two paragraphs? If I remove, then I'm thinking, maybe I should just get rid of that whole that whole thing. But then I was like, but that's kind of the point of the story. Do I shorten it? Like it'll fuck with you. But then I ended up getting some other people to read it who were completely fine with it. So it just goes to who your beta readers are and what they're looking for. And you have to remember, some people just have really dog shit taste in reading too. Yeah. Like
people like reality TV.
Yeah. So. Like put it this way, if you're fucking having like a Gen Z 19-year-old fucking reality TV watching, TikTok loving fucking kid watch The Godfather and critique it, that's like a 3-hour movie. Yeah, good luck getting an honest feedback of that. It was fucking boring. He spoke Italian or some shit. He ate spaghetti a lot. Like, yeah, but what did you think about the cinematography? Like the way that, you know, he zoomed in on Pacino, and then like the whole music faded, and like, no, I didn't get none of that. What I got was you eating spaghetti. Like, all right, you are useless. But did you see that new Adam Sandler movie was quite a riotous? I don't know what I'm talking about. What other parts of the editing process have we not covered? We got like I said, I like to take a break, but then I go into it kind of similar to you. Honestly, before I take the break, I do the spelling, like you said. I do the spelling, red squiggly, all that shit. I do that check.
So it's readable.
Yeah, I do that check first. Rewrites. We'll end on rewrites. When you go back to like the real meaty edit, your spelling grammar's fine, your story makes sense now. You have the scenes lined up where you want them to. The plot's laid out right. The characters are developed. All that stuff is good. Now you're just really focused on expanding the story and making it the best it can be, whether that means filling out scenes, cutting shit down, cutting out those needless sentences. Where do you like to start with that? I just go from beginning to end.
Yeah, beginning from end.
A lot of people tell me they write different scenes. They'll skip around to scenes. That fucks me up. I'm very linear. Not linear. Very linear.
There you go.
I cut down all the way from the beginning to end, go sentence to sentence, and then I just figure out what's working, what's not working. And I find a lot of times my best writing is from the rewrites.
Yeah. That's if I know beforehand going in, like, I know the beginning of the story is pretty good. I know that I'm in the middle, like that muddy middle. I know that's what I'm having the trouble in. But I normally still read it because, like, and this might be something, like, just my writing side. Whenever I'm writing, I act like I'm reading a story, but I'm just, like, typing it out as I'm reading it.
Right.
Like, I'm letting the story come through me. So whenever I'm editing something, I'm trying to read the story and figure out, like, is that good?
Kind of coming at it like you were a person who's reading somebody else's work, and you're trying to make sense of it.
Yeah.
And you're like, hey, this part doesn't make any fucking sense. This doesn't fit. This needs fixed.
Yeah. And like, I find that's a good time to really try to get your voice, like, cemented on, like, the way you either describe a thing or that perfect sentence like we were talking about earlier that just, like, really hammers a point home, or, the way that your characters interact with each other, like that kind of stuff.
It's very easy on the first draft to sound kind of generic. Like, if somebody read your first draft, they wouldn't necessarily know it was your work.
Yes.
Because you don't have your author's voice really involved yet. Because I don't think there's too many authors who, just on the first go, can really make a work their own.
Yeah.
Obviously there's outliers, but I think it's those rewrites is when you really put yourself into the story more. Stephen King said, the first draft is you just getting the story out.
Yeah, it's like the skeleton of a house.
Yeah.
Like, and then you put the plaster up and, I don't know how you build houses, but, like...
Here's a question for you. And I often think about this one, and it makes me feel like, am I not a real writer? You always hear that the first draft is dog shit. But I find in my final stories, even though it is, it was the skeleton of the story, I find a lot of stuff I keep intact. I don't tend to delete. I mean, granted, I'm a slower writer in regards to, I say I don't edit when I write, but I kind of do. Like, I don't edit, I rewrite as I write.
Yeah.
Like, when I start writing, I don't go back to just where I left off. I go back like 4 paragraphs and rework those paragraphs and then continue.
Yeah.
So I'm always kind of adding, but still, in my first draft, I leave a lot in. Like, I hear a lot of people say, oh, you got to fucking get rid of mostly everything. Like, you just have the story. Like, that stuff's all crap. I don't think, like, I like the stuff I write generally. I mean, I'll get rid of stuff, but I don't get rid of, like, a lot of shit.
No, I find, like, a lot of, like, that first vision is what now, granted, like, neither one of us has done, like, a full-length novel to where, like, that can get more dicey, I can imagine. Just staying closer to, like, the short stories side of things.
Well, I think it's how direct you are with your vision, too, like, how closely you follow that.
Yeah.
Because if you say you write a whole sci-fi novel, and you have a main character who's a human, and he's just going about doing whatever shit in sci-fi universe. Well, after you finish that, when you go to the rewrites, what if you go, he would be better as an android? Now you are changing that whole original vision. Me, I usually have the whole vision planned out ahead. Now, I've had a couple stories where I did have to make those big changes, but for the most part, my villain's the villain, my hero's the hero. Like, I know everything already, and maybe that goes out to people who, kind of plot things out and do an outline first, but I'm usually really good at sticking with my original vision, but I feel like a lot of people, they get a change. Maybe that's just their creativity going into overdrive, but they get a big change and they go, you know what? No, this needs to go this way. And then they have to redo the whole story. I don't think I would want to do that. I'd probably want to give up. Maybe that's why I stick to my original vision so much. Or
just write a whole different story.
Like. Yeah. Like I've heard a lot of famous authors who say, actually, originally, the main character of that super famous story that they made 15 movies about, yeah, he was actually a lady.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, he was a lady.
That would go and look at like the first draft of Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's like it's so different. It's
What was Luke
weird.
Skywalker's name? I keep thinking of Lube Skyballer from Zack and Mary Make a Porno, but it wasn't Luke Skyballer, but it was something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was a lot different. And again, obviously the changes work, but if they released the original as it was, maybe that would work too. It's hard to say. You find that a lot in movies where there's like you hear about these big changes, but then you also hear about the same thing in really shitty movies. And you're like, oh, that would have made it so much better.
Yeah.
I think that's the same with books, and it's kind of just a guessing game of what you think will work. You just have to go with your instinct.
Yeah.
Obviously, as you put out more books and you get your name out there more and you get more positive feedback and stuff and you find out what works, you're able to almost formulaic like a James Patterson. You're able to stick to it, like what works, and you just keep putting that out. And obviously, if you're a true artiste, back to the Frenchman, you don't want to be James Patterson, but you know, he makes fucking $1 billion. Like, it's hard to not want to be James Patterson, or at least in his shoes when he has like the perfect of making so much money writing without actually writing. It's amazing. But he knows what works, and that comes through trial and error. I guess that kind of comes to like, I guess you won't really find it in trilogies, but there's a lot of authors who, if you read, like famous authors, you read their first few books, and you can kind of see them trying to find their own voice. They haven't hit exactly. It's very rare an author really hits on their first book, but when they finally do start to make like a more impact in like the literary world, and they start to become famous and stuff, then they like a Neil Gaiman. Now all of a sudden you kind of see the same themes play out, a lot of the same, not necessarily imagery, but like you'll know it's Neil Gaiman when you're reading it. He has his author's voice established. He knows what works. That also comes down to routine in your writing style. Like, hey, you know, I'm Neil Gaiman. I'm gonna go write my fucking writing gazebo in my mansion backyard and live the awesomest life ever. That Caleb has to sit at a kitchen table, and Neil Gaiman has a gazebo, and stupid Neil Gaiman with his dreamy eyes and his curly hair.
Accent. Awesome English accent.
Great English accent. That's our problem. We have terrible accents and awful voices. All right. So, anything you want to add to this conversation?
I don't think so.
Sorry, I got creepy.
Unless we want to make an editor note at the end.
No. Editor's note. No, I mean, I guess we could have covered nonfiction and stuff like that, but I don't want to.
We don't really know much about that.
I do.
Well, I mean, whatever.
Like what the editing process of nonfiction is way different, like journalist style editing. I know that because I've studied the Chicago Manual of Style, Spencer.
Oh, good for you.
Have you seen how big that book is? It's not good for me at all. I don't remember most of it. I'll show it to you in a minute. Anyway, if you folks want to tell us how right or how wrong we were in this episode, you could hit us up on drunkenpenwriting.com. Ding, 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 ding. You can check us out on... We have Twitter still?
I think so. I think that's
Apache
thing.
helicopter.
Charlie's. It's Charlie.
No. I wish it like picked up louder because...
My legs!
Yeah, if you have headphones on, you probably could hear the Apache helicopter. But if you don't have the headphones, you're like, what the fuck are these guys talking about? Fucking douchebags. Like if you're driving in your car, it's kind of loud. You don't hear the Apache. There's Apache helicopters flying over all the time. But the sirens from the multiple cop cars, ambulances, fire trucks, every time those come through, you hear those bright as, perfect. Like fucking hummingbird outside, you hear its wings flapping super loud. Like, I don't know why the Apache helicopter's so quiet. Flies right over my roof, lands on my roof sometimes. What did it just land on the roof? Like, Jesus, that thing's so loud.
Or the forever dripping sink.
Oh yeah, the dripping sink. I'll listen to that sometimes. I have to be like, oh great, I guess I'm spending an hour fucking cutting out every drip. Awesome. I'm glad I didn't move it or turn it off. I could just fix the sink, but I'm gonna be moving at some point, so I don't want to. That'll be the next homeowner's problem. All right. Oh yeah, you can check us out on follow us. Follow us on Twitter, please, at Drunk Pen Writing. We need that follow. We're not gonna do anything with it, but it makes us look cooler. You can go on Instagram and Facebook at Drunken Pen Writing. Also, I'm drinking out of a giant horn mug, just so people know what you're dealing with now. I've made it in the writing world because I'm writing adventure stories now. Yeah. So, gotta fucking drink my. You hear that? That's fucking. Yeah. Because I couldn't drink out of that giant Warrior Stein because I broke the horn off it because it's too heavy. The lid. Did I find the This is much better.
Did you pick that up at a con?
Yes, I did. Steel City, I believe. Anyway, send us stuff. If you like, and Spencer, why don't you lead us out for once? I'm always bumbling through the outro. I don't have an outro. Your turn.
Bye?
What week?
Huh?
Week. That was week. Bye.
You already did the, where to follow us and all that shit. There was nothing else to do except say bye.
Silencio, por favor. No.
You're the language guy, not me.
Yeah.
Say something in, what are you, Japanese or Chinese are you learning?
Do I look like a guy who learned Chinese? Oh. That's hard. No, Japanese, sir. I would say sayonara, but that's like a long goodbye. It means I'm not going to see you for a while. And I don't remember what the other one was. Goodbye!